We are recording.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the New York City Retirement Systems Common Investment Meeting for Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. It's a beautiful day outside. I see lots of sun shining into people's Zoom screens. So away we go. We're going to start by convening the roles. So can we start with teachers? Mr. McTeague.
Thank you, Mr. Adler. John Adler,
I'm here.
Thomas Brown,
Good morning, I'm here, Thad.
Natalie Green Giles,
Present.
David Kazansky,
Present.
Russell Buckley,
Present.
Deborah Penny, okay, and Susanna Vickers.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here.
Great. Mr. Adler, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. McTeague. And let's move to NYSERS, Ms. Winery.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor's Office,
John Adler, still here.
Comptroller's Office,
David Jeter for Controller Scott Stringer.
Public Advocate's Office,
Ruth Guzman for Public Advocate Jemani Williams.
Borough President Manhattan,
Matthew Washington from Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer.
Borough President Brooklyn,
Tanya Cantlow for Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams.
Borough President Bronx,
Martha Camille Sabio for Bronx Borough President Ruben Diaz Jr.
Borough President Queens,
Alan Swisher for Queensborough President Donovan Richards.
Borough President Staten Island,
Isaac Gordetsky for Staten Island Borough President James Otto.
International Brotherhood of Teamsters,
Ruben Torres and Larry Bosley for President Gregory Floyd.
Transport Workers Union,
Dave Katzman for TW Local 100 President Tony Utano.
and District Council 37.
Raymond Santander for Executive Director Henry Garrido.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ms. Winery. Let's move to the Police Pension Fund. Who's going to call the roll? Is Mr. Holleran here? Okay, Mr. Sen, yes, Dave, please.
Good morning, everybody. With me, I have the Police Commissioner's representative, Stephanie Zenberg. Also representing the mayor.
Shuman Ray, representing Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Good morning, Schumann.
Good morning.
Commissioner of Finance.
Phil Dukes for Finance Commissioner, Sharice Suleiman.
Thank you. Controller.
John Dewissa, designee for Controller Scott Stringer.
BBA.
Betty Cavadero.
And Betty, you also have the proxies for
Pat Lynch.
John Puglisi and Joe Alejandro. Thank you.
Joe Alejandro, yes.
Who's that Alejandro guy? Who is that? Okay. All right, SBA.
Anthony Burley.
All right, LBA.
Lou Turco.
CEA.
Johnny Ramirez.
And the DEA.
Jeffrey Ward.
All right, thank you. Mr. Facilitator, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Senskiste. Okay, and Fire Pension Fund. I saw Mr. McGinnis. Are you calling the roll, or is Mr. Dunn with us?
I'm going to call the roll, John.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Good morning.
For Mayor de Blasio.
Good morning, Pat. Cindy Collins, designee for Mayor Bill de Blasio.
For Controller Stringer.
Jennifer Konovitz for Controller Scott Stringer.
Finance Commissioner Solomon.
Steve Yuan for Finance Commissioners, Sheriff Solomon.
For the UFA, Mr. Ansbro.
And Transpo present.
Mr. Eustace,
Bobby Eustace virtually present.
Mr. Brown,
Bobby Eustace with Eddie Brown's proxy.
okay, and Mr. Bischoff.
Good morning, Pat. Eric Bischoff, present.
Good morning. How are you, Eric? For UFA, Mr. DeVita.
Pete DeVita is present.
For the UFOA, Mr. Kelty,
Present.
Mr. Guilfoyle,
Here.
Mr. Mannix,
Here.
and for Fire Commissioner Nigro.
Terrell Brown for Commissioner Nigro.
Good morning, Commissioner. We have a quorum, John.
Sorry, I muted to drown out the sanitation truck rolling by. For the Board of Education Retirement System, Mr. Rich.
Good morning, John. We are represented today by trustees Jacqueline Tacarante, Natalie Green Giles, and Russell Buckley. We do not have a quorum, and we will administer this business at our next Board of Trustees meeting, which is May 27th.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr.
So we're all present. Yes,
Deborah
Mr.
Penny is
McKee.
now present, so if the record could reflect that from TRS.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Ms. Penny. Okay, so
morning.
with that, we're gonna move into the first item on our public agenda, and I don't know who's gonna introduce it. Is it Ms. Schnapper or someone else?
I will be happy to introduce.
Okay. Good morning.
Good
Kara.
morning, everybody. It's Kara Schnapper here, speaking to you to give you an update on strategic initiatives and an update on the reform agenda that was started back in 2014, 2015 by the creation of the Funston Report, which those of you who have been trustees for an extended period of time are totally familiar, or somewhat familiar with, maybe not totally familiar with, and others who might not be as familiar. So let me give you a little bit of a background. Funston was hired back in 2014 to do an overview of the operating environment within the Bureau of Asset Management. And through a series of interviews with employees, as well as looking at outside other public pension funds, speaking with trustees, et cetera, came up with a 400-page roadmap of issues that really needed to be addressed within the Bureau of Asset Management to straighten some of the issues that we were facing. Every year I've been coming back to this group and I've been giving you an update on that. Important to always note that this was a moment in time. So things have changed radically from 2014, 2015, but it's always a good idea to go back because it really was a fantastic roadmap for us to be able to attack some of the issues that were impacting and limiting some of the capabilities that we had within the Bureau of Asset Management. I'm going to be followed by Lynn Fleischman. Lynn joined the Bureau of Asset Management about 5 years ago with an extensive background in the area of financial services. And she took over as the head of investment operations support, working for my partner, David Jetter. She has been a key driver of the operational improvements that have been implemented over the last 5 years, working very, very closely with your staff and really bringing a lot of controls into the environment across the entire portfolio, and has done a fantastic job. And I wanted her to introduce some of the changes that have gone on in there and speak to them a little bit to you so you get a sense of some of the things that are going on within BAM. Next page, please. I've used this page before. It's impossible to see. In fact, I even need to put on a pair of glasses to read it, and I have lived with this page. But this was page 14 in the Funston report, and it was sort of put together by the Funston folks who actually performed this review before I got here. I joined in 2016, but this was the Funston dashboard that they put together with a highlight of a number of items that were key elements of focus. And I've used that before. If anybody is really interested in understanding the full impact of what Funston gave us as a recommendation, there's Appendix 3 at the end of the report, and that has about 180 items. And I repeatedly go back to that to make sure that we really are hitting on all of the elements within that report. To be honest, some of them we actually decided not to go ahead with. For example, there was discussion around foreign exchange hedging, and all of the boards, when presented with that option, decided not to hedge. So that was in the report, but it was not implemented. And there are a few other things in there that were recommendations or things that we should consider that actually didn't come to fruition. But I'm really happy to say that we have hit on almost every single element within the Funston report and created major change within the Bureau of Asset Management. I could go through some of the items in here. You see the check marks where we feel that we've largely completed the items that are mentioned here. Always important to note that when you're in my side of the business, which is really running operations and technology areas and financial services, nothing is ever completed. We always can go through the continuous improvement and continue to evolve the organization. But as far as the items that were mentioned within the key implementation focus, we feel pretty good about those having been really dealt with, and we're moving on to other opportunities. The areas where we're sort of still not having as much traction as we would like, or a couple of areas that I'll highlight. One is in the area of the risk function. As you know, we have implemented the MSCI tool, but we've been hampered by a number of leadership. We're missing leadership right now in the risk team. We also have openings on the staff that haven't been filled as yet, and that's been hampering our ability to really get as much value out of the risk reporting that we have available. I also will say that the team that's in there has been working flat out on all of the other initiatives that have been coming out of the 5 systems, some of the divestment activities, et cetera. So they've been up to their really working on all of that stuff, but we haven't gotten as much reporting out of the risk system as we would like. We continue to work on that, and hopefully we'll have something later on in the year. Additionally, so that's one of the areas that we really need to have more focus, to put more energy on and get more clarity around what we're pulling out of the group. On the financial reporting side, that is another function that we've certainly hit the bid on what was mentioned in the key implementation status, which was building out the middle office. Lynn will talk to that because that's been done under her leadership. That's been done, but we still need more work around the reporting. We've talked many times with the boards. A couple of months ago, this was an issue on speeding up the reporting. We're continuing to work on that, on both improving the quality of the reporting and the timeliness of the reporting. One of the things that we're talking about is potentially going to daily audited data from State Street, which will help us get some time saved in the kind of reporting that we do. But until we really understand the trade-off between the cost of that implementation and how much time we would save, we haven't quite made a decision yet on whether or not we're going to go there. And we don't have all the facts in around either the cost or the time it would save to make that decision as yet. Another area where we have been struggling, and you've also mentioned it in other SIM meetings, is in the contracts area. We have staff openings within contracts that have not yet been filled. That's been a problem for us because the amount of work that the contracts team does is enormous. And frankly, the process is not really well suited to the investment process and what we do. So within the organization, we do what we can within BAM. Others do what they can. The process itself, though, is convoluted and really challenging, and something that I hope in the next year or so, somebody's going to take a look at on an end-to-end basis. And from my view, it's something that would really benefit from a similar kind of a Funston review, because it is something that has hampered our ability to execute on contracts in the timeliness that we should be doing across the board within the investment management space on those contracts, but also in all the other contracts that we do as well. Next page, please. A couple of highlights on our 2020 progress. Operational improvements have continued. The middle office is in place. I'm not going to hit on these very heavily because Lynn is going to be talking to them. We've created a number of tools that we work with the investment strategy staff very closely for the active rebalancing environment. Mike Haddad brings that to you every quarter or so about the volume of dollars that we've actually done in rebalancing and in transitions based on how rocky the markets have been. And that has been supported by a very strong set of tools between the Bureau of Asset Management, Lynn's group, and the investment staff and our State Street partners, so that we've been able to actually execute on those transactions pretty cleanly. We've done a lot of work over the last few years on the alternative asset space. We worked with State Street on fee transparency services. We also continue to work with the administrator and the consultants on validating data. As you know, we have multiple consultants across asset classes. It makes it a little bit challenging. And the investment operations support team works with all of those consultants and State Street to make sure data is consistently reported across the organization. A lot of this work, actually, to jump a little bit ahead, has been supported by the creation of an account master tool. This was a platform that we've been working on with BIST. We have a woman in our team, Mary Lett, who works with us on this within BAM, and we've had some very excellent support from the BIST team on this. We've built a superb tool which has allowed us to get a really good handle around all 2,500 or so funds that we manage across the 5 systems and the variables, as well as really good information around the general partners and the investment managers that we work with. We carry within the CRM somewhere around 150 attributes of the funds and allowed us to standardize activity and information across all of the analysis and the work that we do within BAM. Also, it's very important for your accounting teams. Lynn and her team work with them very closely, and a lot of the work they do is based on the information that we feed them from the account master, so that we're all working on a consistent level of detail. So that's been implemented over the last few years. We continue to evolve that, as well as the CRM. We implemented phase 1 of the Microsoft Dynamics CRM in 2020 and expect to do some more of that work on that in 2021. And we are looking at our next generation of improvements by implementing an optical scanning and reconciliation tool, which will free up our operational staff to be able to do pure value added activities on exception processing, as opposed to doing some of the rote work of doing pure validation of data. Next page, please. So the road ahead, where do we continue to focus? As I said, one of the things we do in our space of the world is work on operational efficiency. That will allow us to just continue to support the growing portfolio with the staff that we've got, and the technology, and bring in an additional technology in the form of the optical scanning and reconciliation tool. We are working to continue to leverage the DataGX platform that we implemented a few years ago from State Street. We are going to be bringing in the next year, a Solovis tool, which was a partnership that State Street did on reporting that we think will be significantly impactful in our alternative asset reporting, and will make that much more user-friendly for ourselves as well as for others, including your staffs. We're looking at CRM phase 2, continuing to discuss, as I mentioned, on whether or not we look at daily audited data from State Street, if that can give us a return on improving the quality of the information intra-month, as well as speeding up reporting. We may decide to do that in the current year. And integrating performance and risk data to give better reporting across the board, because we know that's a pain point for a lot of folks. The last thing to mention is that this is going to be a big focus for us in the end of 2021 and 2022. Our master custody contract with State Street ends in September, I think the end of September, October, I think it's October of 2022. So we're going through the RFP process, starting now with putting together our RFP that will be released probably later in this year, and we will be selecting custodian going forward. It is always a challenge for us. One of the biggest changes anybody could make would be a custodian. So we have to be very careful about that process and do the right thing by selecting the right partner. I'm going to turn this over to Lynn on the investment operations support side, and then come back to you folks for questions at the end, unless anybody has any particular questions right now. Okay, get away.
Okay. Next slide, please. Thank you, Kara, for the introduction, and good morning to you all. As Kara mentioned, I'm Lynn Fleischman, and I'm the Executive Director for Investment Operations Support, and we're also known in BAM as IOS. I've been with BAM a little over 5 years, and I've been focusing on building a support function with value-added processes. Today, I'd like to highlight our role and some accomplishments and the impact these processes have on the source data used by your system accountants, used by the various groups for presentations to you, the trustees, and internally within BAM, and also what's posted on the public website. I hope by the end of my presentation, you'll have some insight into the tremendous amount of work being performed in IOS. So what do we mean by oversight? Our goal is to develop processes that help to identify inconsistencies in the data that is provided by our custodian, State Street Bank, by the 4 consultants hired by the boards, by our alternative administrator, and data from the investment managers. You know, we would expect that there would be discrepancies or inconsistencies in data due to the high volume of transactions, the number of accounts, and the number of external managers. and also due to the fact that data is being provided by multiple sources. With these oversight functions, we identify exceptions, review them with the data provider, and resolve so the users of the data can rely on the data. Another oversight role is to review external service providers, such as our custodian, our security lending agent, our FX service provider. We believe that when service providers know that we're watching, that they're engaging with them frequently, the quality of their service generally improves. And that's what we've seen with our external service providers. So how did we get to where we are today in iOS? Over the past 5 years, BAM has been building these support functions primarily with our existing staff, and we've reorganized the group into 8 functional support groups. This reorganization was in response to many of the findings in the Funston report that Kara mentioned earlier, and the transition of the official books and records to our custodian, State Street Bank. The majority of the groups were organized early in 2017, with an alternative oversight group, a public markets oversight group, expense management, account management, third-party services group, and a research and support group. I'm not going to go through all the functions of the groups, but we'll highlight some of the main accomplishments. The most recent addition to iOS, as Kara mentioned earlier, is the creation of the Alternatives Middle Office in 2019 and the Public's Middle Office in 2021. The Middle Office is an extension of the investment staff, and we've been able to transition many of the operational support functions from the investment staff to the support group. This enables the investment staff to focus on the investment recommendation work and the middle office to work on various operational functions. Specifically, the Alternatives Middle Office is working with your consultants. The middle office reviews consultant certification of the details of the various private market transactions, all your capital calls and distributions, and the middle office is part of the payment approval process, making sure the administrator and the consultants are doing their part in the approval process timely and accurately. On the other hand, the public middle office is working on the transactions related to funding and terminations of managers, rebalances, transaction activity, and works with the investment managers, the investment staff, custodian, FX service provider, securities lending agent. Because there's approximately 2,500 active accounts and about 90 investment managers, we can't reinvent the wheel. So the oversight process I'm talking about, we put into practice a trust but verify philosophy. We have created processes to identify discrepancies or inconsistencies in data and have used as many automations to hone in on the data that requires our review. Again, the oversight process helps to make sure that the data that is presented internally and externally to you, the trustees, and used by the system accountants for their financial statements, and also presented to the public has gone through a review process to identify and resolve any inconsistencies in data. iOS also provides your systems accountants with support regarding any types of questions they have with the data. We also work with the system accountants on any fiscal year-end requirements. iOS is also a main contributor to the annual audit, providing the auditors with all the document requirements and providing support for any questions they may have. Next slide, please. Let's quickly highlight some of the iOS accomplishments. As mentioned earlier, the structural changes are completed and the new structure is primarily organized by functions, which reduces key man risk and sets the team up for continuous professional development, and to be able to support the functions long-term, even with staffing changes. Now let's move on to some key operational highlights. With our expense management team, we've been able to centralize the payment of all invoices, create a verification tool, and reduce payment processing to less than 15 days, where it was taking several months in the past. Our investment managers appreciate this, and we have a reputation of paying our bills timely. Another operational achievement is that we designed and built with our technology team BIST an account master database, which Kara mentioned earlier, to maintain all the account attributes in the history. This application has also enabled us to standardize and automate the account opening process with our custodian. We maintain approximately 4,200 historical accounts. We continue to scrub and clean the historical data so they can be referenced in the future. And as Kara mentioned, the system accountants reference this data. We provide them with a list every month. Another operational achievement is the decommingling of accounts. We started a little over 2 years ago. As a reminder, a commingled account is one market-facing account traded by an investment manager on behalf of more than one of the New York City retirement systems. And the retirement systems receive their portion of the NAV through an accounting allocation process. Decommingling of the account gives each retirement system the transparency into the accounts that they were lacking. This was a large undertaking, and approximately 23 commingled accounts with 62 underlying retirement system accounts, excuse me, accounts to decommingle, and a great deal of coordination with your investment managers and the custodian. We have completed the decommingling of the accounts we initially identified, and we're looking at 7 additional investments to determine if they're eligible for decommingling. We're also not opening any other commingled accounts. Next slide, please. Let's talk a little bit about reporting. Although we're not the group that creates the official reporting, iOS has created some reporting for the system's accountants as supplemental data to aid in their understanding of the transaction events that occur. Through our account master list, the system accountants know when an investment account is opened, when it's funded, which helps them with their record-keeping functions. We also provide the system accountants with supplemental information on transfer activity that occurs during the month. The next item, we've received compliments and positive feedback from our investment managers, and the managers have commented that BAM is a leader in the industry with this type of function and type of reporting that we're distributing. So what we did was we created a biannual investment manager report card on key operational metrics. This report card has resulted in improvements with investment manager deliverables and improvement in communication of discrepancies and explanations and resolutions. We've also created an extensive KPI document and a monthly review process with our custodian. Through constant dialogue and review, we push for continuous improvement and the highest level of service. Turning now to oversight. We've created an extensive review of your consultant's private investment transactional data to the alternative administrative data to identify exceptions and get resolution and any corrections that may be required. The private market investments have on average about 500 transactions per month. iOS makes sure that the official books and records and the consultant's data are in sync. And again, both of these sources are used for reporting by the consultants, BAM, and the retirement system accountants. As part of our oversight of the public managers, we implemented a standard monthly investment manager to custodian reconciliation template and created a review process. We receive approximately 450 templates. We work with the custodian and the managers on a monthly basis to explain and resolve any discrepancies in reported data. This process helps to identify any NAV discrepancies and any IRR discrepancies that are being reported. We've also created historical reconciliations of IRR and TVPI reported by the alternative administrator as compared to what's reported by your consultants. Making sure that the two data sources are in sync is important, as data can be reported out of either system. There are over 2,000 accounts with historical transactions dating back as far as the early 2000s. This historical reconciliation project is still in process. We've also implemented a review process of the alternative administrator's quarterly ILPA fee reporting, reviewing templates for approximately 1,500 accounts received quarterly. Again, the data is used by your system accountants for the annual financials. As mentioned earlier, we've created an oversight of our third-party service providers, our custodian, our securities lending agent, and foreign exchange provider. Oversight is making service providers be accountable for the services they are providing, as they know that BAM is always there in the background reviewing their data and questioning when needed. Now, I know that was a lot of information, but hopefully you have a good idea of BAM's support functions, and you know that there's a team working daily, reviewing the data and making the service providers accountable, and in turn, the source data used in reporting is reliable. I'll turn it back to Kara, and then we can answer any questions you may have.
Thanks, Lynn. I think it's a really important fact to note that Lynn has brought, working with David and the rest of the team, an enormous amount of change into the Bureau of Asset Management. And what's really nice about that is that we did that by working largely with the existing staff that was there. Some people left on their own, retired, whatever, but we've really been able to build a team nicely with the staff that we had, as well as a few new implants into the group to sort of bring their other skills to the team. But we've been able to really turn the organization into a much more effective organization to support the portfolio. So, and I also will one other thing I'll mention, because it's another point of pride I think that we have. When Lynn mentioned the issue of KPI, we started off with KPIs with State Street and our own internal KPI with about 5 pages worth of KPI. We now are up to about 95, if I remember correctly. And anything that's watched, and you all work in these kinds of areas in your own organization, it's always good to know the data around the organization. So we actually review this monthly with our administrators, and we actually are able to improve quality consistently by using the KPI that we have available and that we've been tracking so far. And I will say that even with State Street, as big as they are in the public pension space, I think our KPI documents probably set the tone for others because we are much more expensive than some of our peers. So any questions? I'd be happy to take any questions, or Lynn will as well.
Thank you, Cara and Lynn. So if there are questions, if you would use the raise hand function from the reaction tab to indicate that you have a question. Let me just clarify, because not everybody may know what KPIs are. Could you just...
Key performance indicators, sorry.
Thank you, Cara.
Lingo, sorry.
Are there any other questions for Cara, for Lynn?
Yeah, John, I have a question.
Yes, Paul.
That presentation, those slides, are they available? Are they on Convene, or can we get an email?
I believe they're on Convene.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Santander, it says Dave Santander, but we all know you as Raymond Santander.
My son accessed the system yesterday. I think it was a passive aggressive move on his part.
Go ahead, Ray.
So my question is, one of the bullet points said created oversight of third-party service providers. So, you know, what defined, like, what does that mean, created oversight, and how is oversight done?
Yes.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Yes. So basically what we're doing is we're making sure that each of the external service providers are delivering upon what our expectations are, the type of service. So our securities lending agent, our foreign exchange provider. So we review the programs with them, and you know, we have constant communication just to understand, you know, and make sure that we're getting everything that we need.
Thank you.
Ray, one of the points that came through on Funston actually was the fact that we needed to be a more assertive partner with some of our third-party vendors, and you know, whether it be foreign exchange or securities lending vendor or our administrator, State Street Bank. And I think part of what Lynn talks about is that we've put those processes in place so that we are a partner with those folks in getting our needs met more aggressively.
Thank you, Cara.
Any other questions for Cara or Lynn? I just want to ask one question. Lynn, one of your bullets says implemented a review process of the alternative administrator quarterly ILPA fee reporting. And one of the things that we have been concerned about is that some of our managers have been dinged by regulators for irregularities in terms of fee collection and fee reporting over the years. And so we now require them to report to us on the ILPA template, but it strikes us that other than that requirement, nobody really checks to make sure that the reporting that they do on the ILPA template is accurate. I wonder if you could discuss in brief what the review process that you've implemented is, and whether it is intended to discern when managers, you know, aren't accurate with their fee reporting and collecting to the systems.
Sure. So as you know, we've actually used State Street as a their fee transparency service. So all the templates actually go into the administrator. They have a system to collect it. But what we do is once they report that to us, we independently check all the numbers that they've put in to make sure that they're accurate. And we have kind of like a little tool that we've built to try to find any type of discrepancies. But we also compare a lot of that back to what's reported on a separately from the GPs on their, quarterly capital account statements and things like that. We also look for inconsistencies from quarter to quarter on things like fees and whatnot. Why did it go up so much from one quarter? Why is it missing from one quarter? Things like that. So we try to hone in. So we're really at the beginning of this process, and we try to think through ways in which what else can we do. Sometimes they send in the template, doesn't add up correctly, doesn't, things like that. So we're trying to those type of things we can easily, figure out whether or not the template is even correct. But, the next step going into the, the data on the fees and things like that, there's more work that can be done there. But we do try to uncover, obvious errors in the data. And we work with the GP, we go back to them, we ask them. And one of the interesting things is that we're getting almost 70%, 75% of our GPs are reporting, with ILPA statements and even on the normal capital calls and distribution. So we've really pushed, all of the GPs to be able to provide that data, and we've seen increases on that.
So Lynn is
Great.
absolutely correct, John. So she's absolutely correct. We actually do a lot of work in verifying that the ILPA statement and the GP statements are correct, that State Street has the right, that the consultants have the right, et cetera. But if you're asking the question as to whether or not the GPs are putting the right information into that based on what your LP agreement is, that's not really being done within the Bureau of Asset Management. It's actually a responsibility that's more at the feet of the consultants, and they do some work around that. But there is discussion in the industry clearly around how do you actually tie whether or not you're being charged as being correct based on the agreements. And we don't have an answer on how we get at that other than relying upon our consultants who are supposed to be looking at that kind of are they doing what they said they were going to do within the LP agreement that we signed?
Right. I don't think the consultants are doing it either, truthfully. We asked the consultants.
I wouldn't disagree. I would not disagree with you on that one at all, John.
I do think that talk about next frontier. It is. I think that there ought to be a technological solution. I don't know if there is yet, but to actually make sure that the GPs are conforming with the agreements they sign with us and are, only charging us the fees that we agreed to pay and are providing the waterfalls back to us that they agreed to pay. I'm not convinced that all of our general partners are actually doing that, but that's just a hunch, based on their track records. I don't think that we have the tools, and I think it would be helpful if you guys, as part of your process going forward, can see what technology is out there to try to, essentially hold them accountable for what they're supposed to do.
It's an interesting perspective, because frankly, that's what we've done in the public market sector. We've applied technology. We look at the Schedule A's, which are the fee schedules that were established when we invested with these managers. And we've created tools that basically do a calculation of what we think we should be paying managers. And then when we get our bills in from our managers, we actually can use technology to revalidate it. And to Lynn's point around the improvement on the paying the public market fees, a lot of that improvement was because we built this tool that allows us to recalculate the public market fees. And that, we know what we're supposed to be paying before they hit us with a bill. And then we can really do a compare. We know that it's right, and we can make a payment, and it makes it a simpler process. I'm not quite sure that a technology solution is the only or the best answer. There are certainly pieces of technology that we're going to be implemented. So we're going to be doing this optical scanning against the private market capital call and distribution information that we get from our GPs, the ILPA statements, et cetera. So we're going to be using that. But the agreements are not standardized in such a way that the technology, ultimately there will be technology on there, but there are actually folks out there that will go through your GP agreements and actually look at the bills and determine whether or not you're being charged appropriately. We've thought about that in the past, and I think it's something that we need to look at again for the future. 'Cause I
Great,
agree with you. I
great.
think
That
that there
sounds
are-
great.
Yeah, I think that there's opportunities out there, let's put it that way.
Yeah, John,
I
you know,
encourage you to look
certainly,
at that.
John, it's Alex Donier.
Hi, Alex.
Good morning. No, I was just going to agree with Lynn and Kara. I think, as you know, some of the challenges in private markets is just the unique nature of each individual contract that the systems have with their managers and mapping that to fees. But Kara's correct. There are certain providers out there that do this service. Think about the partnership that the systems have. The strategic partnership that systems have. If you recall, the systems engage a third-party administrator to be able to verify those fees, which happens every quarter, which Lynn's group, the IOS group, is also involved in addition to our investment staff. I would say, importantly, I commend the decision of the boards and BAM, frankly, in instituting, as you know, this ILPA fee requirement. While it's not perfect and we're not able to do an audit, which is what I think you're asking, and ultimately it's an audit to make sure that our managers are billing and charging the systems as appropriate and as per the contracts that the systems signed up for. We will say that we have the increased transparency has allowed us to get a better sense, much more granular sense for what our fee load and cost are for the systems. And you see that improvement in the reporting that Lynn does, in the work that Kara does together with David Jetter, and it's been a market improvement that our systems see in our CAFR, our annual report, where we just have better recorded fees. And I think that in and of itself is a big achievement. But you're right, there's more that we can do here and things for us to think about and investigate further for the next year.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex. Thanks, Kara, Lynn. Ray, there's still a hand up in your screen,
Okay.
but I think it might be.
I have a question.
You have another question? Okay, go ahead, Ray.
So, sorry to spoil the party here, but it seems to me quite a weakness that we have a multi-billion-dollar private equity portfolio, and from what I'm hearing, are unable to determine with precision whether we're being charged the correct fees. If we think of a penny saved is a penny earned, I mean, so we don't even know. Am I correct in saying we don't even know like what the leakage might be in terms of fees? I mean, I just think that's a real problem, and I think that efforts really have to, we should have laser focus to look at that, because we have not just NYSERS, all the other systems have multi-billion-dollar private equity portfolios. So, a little here and a little there, and it adds up to quite a bit of money, which represent returns. So I would urge, I appreciate all the hard work of BAM and Alex and Kara and Lynn and everyone else, but I really think we need a real focus, a laser-like focus on working on this. And if that means, people to have to reassign people to go over contracts and accountants and so forth, then so be it. I mean, this is a lot of money at stake here. I'm not happy to hear this.
I think, Ray, if I can jump in again, your comments and your questions are well noted. I think what we're saying, to be clear, is that there certainly is a level of review that not only happens on the BAM side, it also happens with through your consultants that you've hired in these asset classes. You mentioned private equity specifically. So there is a review that is happening by the back offices of the consultants.
Enter your meeting ID followed by
Sam, you please. Thanks, Sam.
There's certainly
Yeah,
review work that is happening there.
enter your participant ID.
Sam,
You are in the meeting now. There are more than
You need to mute.
120 participants in the meeting. This meeting is being recorded.
Sam Gahigan, you need to mute. Okay, sorry, Alex.
And I was just going to add and just remind Ray of a point that you're aware of, that certainly all of our managers, are audited, so there is a review there. There are, testifying there that their not only the financials are accurate, but part of it is how they're billing and their investors. So certainly there's an auditor review that's happening at these PE firms. I think what we're saying is what we're not doing is our own independent audit of fees, by each manager and mapping that to each contract so that, we are being charged as per every line item jives with the actual contract. I think that level of more detailed audit is certainly a consideration. And we hear you loud and clear going forward. That is not occurring now through BAM.
So, Alex, let me just respond. What I heard was that the fees, that it was not, or it couldn't be done at this point with precision, at least not in all contracts. So in terms of expenses and so forth, they have their own accountants, and I understand that. What I heard was the issue of fees. And the other point I wanted to make, which I just heard a few minutes ago, was that apparently our consultants don't do this as a matter of course. I don't know exactly what, they do very fine work, but apparently they don't do this. So if they don't do this, is there a way to get them to do it, just to give more help to the BAM staff, which we all know works very, very hard, as do you.
Ray,
Perhaps if one of the, should we see if one of the consultants, Stepstone or Hamilton Lane or Oxy, is on the Zoom, wants to just, weigh in on what they do and don't do, or should we defer this to a separate discussion? I don't want to go crazy here with our discussion this morning.
That's fine. It's fine with me, John, whatever the will of the
okay.
Facility.
I think certainly at the NICERS caucus, we can have this discussion, John. The consultants will be there and can discuss the actual process they go through. They certainly do have a process, but it'll be important to hear from them how detailed and if it's for every single fund in the portfolio and how often, because it is just for New York City alone, across the 5 systems, hundreds of manager relationships, let alone underlying funds.
Thank you, Alex.
That makes sense. Okay. I see a hand from UFOA, either Jack or Liam.
Hey, John, thank you. I appreciate it.
It's Liam, just for the stenographer, right, Liam?
It is Liam speaking, yes.
Thanks.
So just out of curiosity, I know we had the Funston report, and from what I'm understanding here, BAM is doing their own internal review of how they're doing with the Funston report's recommendations. Is that correct?
Yes.
So my question is, isn't that kind of like the fox watching the hen house? Shouldn't we be having an external person seeing how we're doing with those Funston recommendations?
You are preaching to the choir here. I would love to have another review similar to that. I think that every several years you would get a totally different, I think that if you got somebody in who basically not only looked at Funston, but did the next 4 years, maybe that will happen under the next controller. We'll get another great roadmap to work with. But yes, I would love to have another party taking a look at it. I think that would be great.
So then my question that becomes, how do we make that happen, John? Or is that for Alex?
Excellent question, Liam. Why don't we, my suggestion, and I will note that the original Funston report was an initiative of the Controller Stringer. So credit where credit is due. But I think we could certainly discuss in the boards a proposal to ask the Controller's office to do a search for another external review which could be Funston or could be another new set of eyes to review the controllers or the Bureau of Asset Management's processes and, make a new set of recommendations, which is what I hear Cara advocating for.
Absolutely. I think, that's actually correct. I agree with that completely, John. I would also say that, don't forget also, we also have internal audit that looks at this stuff within the Bureau of Asset Management. So it's not like we can just say we fixed this and it's done. They also look at these issues as well. But it's always great to have a roadmap. And I think that a lot of the changes that we made were based on the fact that we had a very strong roadmap that allowed us to actually drive change.
Thank you very much for your time and efforts, and I appreciate you being as forthcoming as you were in that response. Look forward to us trying to improve the processes as we move along. I think it's really important that we make sure that this all works correctly.
Thank you.
Ms. Vickers, hand up.
Yeah, thanks, John. And, I'll just add that, Cara's annual reports on our progress with, addressing the recommendations of the Funston report, her annual reports to the board, to the different boards is also, sort of a review of the progress. And, because the boards, partner with BAM in overseeing the operations of the pension funds, the boards are also empowered to review what we're doing. So I just am, responding to Liam's fox in the henhouse comment, because I don't think that's entirely accurate. I think the boards have a role, and we've been trying to keep the boards informed on all of the Funston recommendations and the progress that we've made in addressing them.
So John, if I may respond, this is Liam Guilfoyle again.
Yes, Liam.
Suzanne, I appreciate the fact that you have, but in my 2 years on this board, I recall us bringing the Funston report and asking where we were at with that Funston report to the attention of the comptroller. I think that was about 2 years ago. And I will say that you guys have brought it back up to us, but I still think that an external review of how BAM and the comptroller have handled recommendations would be a lot better than an intern.
I mean, that I would say that's definitely the prerogative of the board, but are you suggesting an audit of Cara's presentations to the boards over the past couple of years, or are you asking for a new Funston report to look at the operations going forward over the next 4 years? I think you really need to be specific, because I'm not sure that that everybody's understanding what you're asking for. And it seems like you're saying that you don't trust the information that is being conveyed during these meetings, and you want an external party to review BAM's responses to the first external report.
So I would say trust but verify. And when I asked my question, Cara said that she would absolutely welcome a review. So when I asked that question and Cara said that she amen pretty much what I said, I would ask her what she thinks is the best way to review that, considering she said she would welcome it.
Let me just. I don't think that we're in a midst of a disagreement here. I think that there seems to be.
No, I don't. I think that there was an unfair insinuation made by Liam that the iOS. Excuse me. Let me finish. That iOS was somehow misrepresenting and needed to be reviewed.
You're not going to say there's an insinuation. I made no insinuation. I simply asked
Well, you said it's the fox.
Is that the same as the fox in the hen house? And
That, if that's not an insinuation, I don't know what is.
Okay,
Guys,
guys,
can I just
not
throw in 2
productive.
cents? Can I say something, please? I
Yes,
gotta,
Cara.
I have to say, Susanna, I appreciate your stepping in for us, but I actually don't think Liam was asking that. I'm actually pretty comfortable with his question. I do think that we are reporting against ourselves, which is something that happens, and frankly, we use this as a roadmap. So we are very well positioned to be able to say where we stand. My sense of where spending good money, don't go back and spend money to redo Funston. Go back and look at Funston and then take it to the next level. So there are other things that we could be doing going forward, and I would love to have another Funston as a roadmap. I don't think anybody that would come in and look at this is just going to redo to look whether or not we look the same as we do in 2015. So I'm actually very comfortable. I think what Liam asked is a good thing. I think that every once in a while you should have a really strong external view that helps you out on looking at what you can do better. So I'm very comfortable with that. I'm not offended by his comment whatsoever. I think it was actually a good question.
Well, Kara, I think you're misunderstanding his comment. His comment was to have somebody come in and audit our review of the Funston report. He did not suggest having a new Funston report to someone give us a roadmap for the next 4 years. He was specifically, and Liam, correct me if I'm wrong, you are specifically requesting that we need outside help to review BAM's responses to the Funston report because you're not satisfied with what's being presented to the boards. You think that you need an external party to check it.
Susanna, you're wrong. I asked because I'm not in the financial industry if we need someone to review this. Is it good to have someone from an external review say, hey, listen, yeah, you guys are doing this. So if that's, I was asking, should it be another Funston? And further disclosure, I'm not taking a shot at anyone. I appreciate the fact that this is being done. I want this to work. I want this to work as best as it can. I appreciate Kara's hard work. I thank her for her hard work. I thank her for her candor. And I look forward to whatever is recommended will make this process go smoothly into the future.
And Liam,
Thank you,
just to
Liam.
reiterate
Thank you,
and
Susanna.
close
Thank you,
this,
Cara.
I just wanted to, John, just to state again and reiterate for Liam, certainly what the board should contemplate, as Cara has articulated, is thinking of a new Funston, as I think we're calling it, that also looks at, the future and the road ahead, which is part of what Cara presented. And I think, again, what Cara is saying, that it is best practice for an organization like this one to do that every several years or so. So it is the right time to think about a new review. That's
Great.
prospective.
Okay, thank you very much. We are over time on this item. So UFOA, if you can put the hand down if you're done, which I think you are. And unless there are further questions for Cara or for Lynn, which I don't see any, we're going to thank them both for the presentation and the hard work they've been doing on behalf of the boards, and we're going to move forward. Thank you. So that concludes our public agenda for this morning. And so we're going to move into motions to exit public session and move into executive session at each board. So let's start at fire. Is there a motion at fire to exit this public session and enter executive session? Can someone unmute and give me a motion? Thank you, Mr. Hansbrough. Is there a second?
Second, Bobby Eustace.
Thank you, Mr. Eustace. Any discussion at fire? All in favor of the motion to exit public session and enter executive session at fire, please unmute yourselves and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. At police, is there a motion to exit public and enter executive session?
So moved, John Dorsa.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsa. Is there a second at police?
Johnny Ramirez, second.
Thank you, Mr. Ramirez. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to exit public and enter executive session at police, please unmute yourselves and say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions?
John, I'll just note for the record, Kenny Sparks from the DEA is present.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, John.
Good morning, Kenny. Thank you, Bob. Okay, next at NYSERS, is there a motion to exit public and enter executive session?
So moved, Matthew Washington.
Thank you, Mr.
Second,
Washington.
Ruben
Is there a
Torres.
second? Thank you,
Second.
Mr. Torres. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion at NYSERS to exit public session and enter executive session, please unmute yourselves and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. And at teachers, is there a motion to exit public session and enter executive session?
So moved, Susanna Vickers.
Okay, I heard Mr. Brown, but Ms. Vickers will give you the second. Thank you. Any discussion at teachers? All in favor of the motion at teachers to exit public and enter executive session, please unmute yourselves and say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, so we are now in executive session at all the boards. Can we please turn the cameras off? And I would ask any members of the public or the media to exit if they happen to be on the Zoom. Please let me